Self-help books have taken over the book world. With the rising popularity of self-help over the past decade, we've seen a growth in self-help books as well. All over social media and bookstores, you will see self-help books everywhere. With the self-help community and the self-help gurus claiming that these books are life-changing and are must-reads. However, in recent times, I've noticed a shift in the perception of self-help books. And though generally, these books are still praised and millions of them sell each and every year, I've noticed a group of people starting to go against these books, with people claiming these books as slop and saying that they've taken up undeserved space on bookshelves where real books should be placed. With fiction books like sci-fi and memoirs or historical books or even the classics all be taken out of the limelight because of self-help books. So what is it that makes these self-help books that bad? Or is it just the book community going against these books because they like to see their books have more success? Well, today I'm going to dive into it and see, are self-help books really all that bad? So let's dive into it and let's see what you really should be reading. But first, we've got to define what a self-help book is. Well, like the name entails, self-help books are often books that are meant to guide and mentor the reader to improve aspects of their life. Often being non-fiction books and focusing on all aspects of life, whether it's habit building, fitness, or mental health. Seriously, there's self-help books about everything, whether it's your finances or finding true happiness. It feels like you can find a self-help book about anything. There's also like the 48 Laws of Power or something if you want to like take over the world or something. But seriously, some of these books dive into really deep topics, such as religion or our overall outlook on life. And you might be thinking, that sounds amazing. Picking up a book that can tell you information to improve every aspect of your life like that, it seems so easy. But that's where the trap comes from self-help books. And this trap has claimed many people, including myself. So let me explain how the self-help trap goes. You walk into your local Barnes & Noble looking for a self-help book. And after finding the one that's gonna fix your life, you drop way too much money on it and head back home to start reading. And this book is amazing. It's probably your first time reading since high school. And unlike those books, you're actually learning stuff that applies to your life. It feels like every chapter you learn something new and you begin to apply that stuff to your own life. And you begin to move through these chapters. You're thinking about all the cool ways you can apply this stuff to your life. It's gonna help you get jacked, make a bunch of money, and you're never gonna be unhappy again. It seems like this knowledge was just out there and you finally got it and you'll be successful in life. And once you finish that book and you've gained all that cool information from all those chapters that you read, you feel like you've learned so much. In fact, you wanna keep learning. So you keep buying more self-help books. So you head back to your local Barnes & Noble and you buy even more self-help books, spending way too much money. And you need to know all the nitty-gritty stuff. You need to know how to make more money. You need to know how to get jacked. You need to know how to be happy. And you just continue to buy these books and continue to learn. But as you read these books, none of them are hitting like the first book. It feels like a lot of the knowledge has become redundant and you're not really learning how to apply this stuff to your life. Hell, some of the information from these books will literally contradict the other books you've read, confusing you even more, and wondering how you're gonna apply this stuff to your life when one person is saying this and the other is saying that. And now it's happened. You fell for the self-help trap. And don't get me wrong, self-help books do have some good information, and there are some quality books out there. But when you're learning so much information, you begin to forget how you're going to apply this to your own life. Like, I bet it's pretty interesting reading about David Goggins' struggles and seeing all the things he's gone through and all the things he's persevered through. But reading about that stuff isn't going to get you to run 100 miles like him. And due to authors wanting to make these books accessible, they cram so much information into single chapters. Ideas that could spend hundreds of pages are crammed into just a few paragraphs. Like seriously, this book goes over like 20 laws of human nature. Do you really expect to remember all the content within this book when only each law has one chapter worth of content? You would just be better off doing research on the topics you actually cared about and wanted to learn about through Google searches rather than reading that book. Because at the end of the day, this book is no different than a bullet-pointed document. It's just telling you the laws of human nature instead of having you feel them out through characters and a story. Okay, I know I just hated on self-help books a lot, but as you can see, I do own many self-help books myself. But some of these books are genuinely quality books. And in some cases, I really have been successful of applying what I've learned from these books into my own life. But that's a deciding factor. If you can't apply these books into your own life in a meaningful way, then what's the point? But moving on from self-help, we have to look at the other side of the spectrum. The other most popular genre of books, fiction books, and to see Are they really better than self-help at teaching you things? No, seriously. Not only do fiction fans think these books are more fun to read, but they also believe fiction books provide more wisdom and knowledge than a self-help book could ever do. But how the hell is that possible? Well, some people argue fiction books like Harry Potter, The Hunger Games are purely entertainment and there's no value to gain from these books. And that they believe that self-help books are the true way to become a Sigma male. Because instead of reading about magic and sci-fi fantasy, you're learning about real successful people who have done the things that you want to do. But unlike self-help books, fiction embarks on something way beyond that. They make you feel something. By feeling a story instead of hearing ideas, you're picking up details and the raw ideas of an author presented through their characters and their story. As fiction books provide a true space for an author to show their creative freedom, to take their thoughts and ideas and cloak them into characters and metaphors. So basically I'm saying, fiction books provide a space for authors to collect all the ideas that they've gained throughout their whole entire lives and put it into a real story. And that's exactly why you feel a story, why you get upset while reading a book, or sad, or excited. You actually feel these stories instead of just hearing information. And that's exactly what a self-help book lacks. Though you might be learning the same information at the end of the day, you're not really feeling that information and learning with characters. And one thing with fiction is, oftentimes when two different people walk away from a story, they feel two different ways about it. And that to me is why fiction is art and self-help books aren't. As when you finish a self-help book, you absorbed and heard the same information as any other reader of that book. And sure, you may apply it differently to your life. It's all the same information and it's all the same feeling at the end of the day. Whereas with fiction, the feeling that comes from a story differs from person to person. The feeling that you walk away from a story comes from a perception of the problems, characters, and overall plot that you've read through. It leaves each person with their own feelings about these unfiltered ideas that the author has presented you. And the knowledge and wisdom you walk away from that book all comes from your own feelings. And this oftentimes even leads to people completely misreading the main idea of books, feeling it way different than the author intended. And that's why people have such differing opinion about fiction books and have such hot takes. But I think that's also what makes fiction so great. Everyone's walking away from a story feeling different. And though some people might misread that story and not really get the unfiltered ideas that the author is presenting, everyone's feeling something from those books no matter what. So it may sound like I'm team fiction, but here are my true thoughts on what you should be reading. As I have read a lot of self-help and fiction over the past year, and I have gained knowledge from both of them. And for self-help, I've generally found books that have brought me knowledge that I've carried throughout my whole life, and I continue to use every single day. But I've also seen several self-help books fail me, where I couldn't even get through a couple chapters without giving up on them, because there's so much information crammed, and it feels like I'm really not learning how to apply this stuff to my life. Because when you're reading about 100 of complex ideas that come from so many different people and experiences, crammed into a 300-page book, it's really difficult to really learn about that stuff. Whereas with fiction, you're not getting outright told what you should be learning. Rather, you're just feeling out the characters, ideas, and plots, and bringing away your own feelings up from it. Fiction's a very raw representation of these ideas. And though it sometimes can be really difficult to really learn from these books, I feel like once you get into these books, you really can see the wisdom within it. And again, you're not going to be outright told how to get jacked, how to become rich in a fiction book. So I gotta say, I'm team fiction. I really love reading these books, and I really feel like I have learned a lot from these books. But I can't lie to you, I got into reading because of self-help books. And again, I've learned a lot from these books, and I still would recommend a lot of these books to people. So at the end of the day, just pick the book you want to read. So if you really do want to learn about habit building, pick up a book like Atomic Habits. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you want to read a book about justice and revolution, start the Red Rising series. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. And reading goes way beyond just those genres. Whether it's autobiographies or the classics, there is so much to read and so much to learn. So the best thing you can do is read. Read the genres you want and mix it up a bit. No, I'm just kidding. I found this book by Charles Dickens really boring. But maybe you'll like it.